I would like to ask the Minister for Infrastructure whether the draft report on the Douglas Harbour Master Plan, Sediment and Navigation Studies had been made available to the Council of Ministers before it formulated its response to the Environment and Infrastructure Policy Review Committee's report on the Harbours Strategy.
Minister for Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Council of Ministers has not had sight of the full draft report. The draft report, which is a lengthy document of over 300 pages, was still in the process of being proofread at the time of the November sitting of this Honourable Court. A brief section was extracted from the conclusions of the report and circulated to all honourable members just prior to the November sitting. As members will know, it's good practice for any member planning to refer to a document in debate to circulate a copy of that document in advance.
Member Mr. Robert Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is the Minister teasing this Honourable Court, or is his department confused? He will recall that he teased us hours before the last October, the November Timwald, saying that effectively here's an executive summary of a report which is accurate and represents what's in the main report, but didn't make the report available to us, a 300-page report. Then he said, but if you want to read it, by all means ask us, and we'll make it available. And so we asked, and it wasn't available. And it suddenly isn't available until later on this month, as I understand it. He then said somewhere in...
Question, please.
I'm coming to it, Mr. President. Neither. He then said that effectively, well, it's very technical and we wouldn't want to read it. So can we get a bit of clarity around this whole confusing matter?
Thank you, Mr. President. I confirm it's not confusing. It's very straightforward. Normally, a draft report will go through a process. Will get refined. We have a presentation in just over a week, and we've also invited a number of other members from industry to be part of that. Obviously, until we've had it presented and gone through all the detail, then that's when the final report will be published. As I said in my letter. Once the final report is available, we will publish that. Report, which is also what I've mentioned in one of the answers to a written question. The substantial nature and what I was trying to refer, simply because I wanted to refer to it in the speech, was why I circulated the executive summary of those conclusions.
Supplementary question, Mrs. Maska.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the Minister say that the report as received at the moment has been helpful to his department in maybe reassessing its position? And I'd also like to ask when the report will be available to members, after his letter indicated that it would be made available, and yet, having requested it, it's not been produced. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, just to make absolutely clear, I said these are extracts that I was going to refer to in my speech. I then said, as soon as the final report is available, I'll make it available as normal process. We will have a presentation next week. There'll be a chance and opportunity to question the consultants, to test all of the, if you like, the scope. And once that is done, we will then publish it for all members and for public consumption.
Honourable Member for Douglas East, Mrs. Barber.
Thank you. I wonder when the Minister will make the report available to those members and lay people who have been invited to talk at a presentation in 1 week's time, and whether they'll have an opportunity to digest that report prior to that session that's been arranged.
Minister to reply.
Thank you. I think we'll first look at the presentation, and then that will then develop whether at the exact date when we publish, but it'll be shortly after the presentation, I would imagine.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just trying to work out then. Obviously, we've had the Select Committee report on the Harbours issue without this report. The government's response has also not been informed by this report. Is this report so significant that actually everyone needs to take a breath for another month and look at the whole issue again in light of it next month, or is this a matter of detail? If this is the magic bullet that sways the argument for Tynwald one way or another about the strategy for our harbours, is this something that we should be doing today?
Thank you, Mr. President. I mean, one of the first, fundamental points I'll be making now isn't fundamental, it's one element. The Harbour Strategy is for the whole island. It's not just about Douglas, it's about Laxey, it's about Castletown, it's about Port St Mary, it's about Ramsey, it's about Peel. And this is one element, and in my speech I was merely referring to the fact that the draft report, the desktop study, refers to the fact that the longer berth at Victoria Pier to 240 metres will not have an effect on silt movements and will not need to be dredged. That's where the summary report. The deep water berth option at Prince Alexander Pier has a big effect on silt movements, but will not need dredging either, as there could be some isolated issues. So I was really referring to the fact the committee's report refers to a dredging cost of £1 million a year. The expert research agreed in the report has been essential to the fact that there will be no need to dredge either options. I was only going to refer to the total requirements. So in answer, no, it's not material. It's one element, one part of the harbours. And I think one of the key misunderstandings with the Harbour Strategy, it sets a principle, it sets a motion, it sets a strategy. Obviously, each time we come to develop or need a new, if you like, a extension to one of the piers, the link spans or whatever, that will then come to this honourable court for approval. So it sets a direction, it doesn't prescribe specific solutions.
Supplementary question, Mrs Maska.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hear the Minister say that it's not a fundamental element, but it's an intrinsic part of a wider view. Could the Minister respond to the question asked, has it been helpful, this report, and will it have an impact on his department's view? And might he tell us when this report was commissioned and when the full report might be delivered? Thank you.
Minister to reply.
Thank you. This then goes into the written questions, so I don't know if we're straying off the answers. It was commissioned back in March, and it will be, if the presentations go as expected, it will be probably presented almost very shortly, within days of the presentations, if there are some factors that come out with regards to scope. And yes, it has been helpful. It has really reconfirmed some of the department's thinking in terms of the lack of, there isn't a need for dredging in Victoria Pier if we went with that option.
Supplementary question, Mrs Barber.
Thank you. I wonder if I can ask on what date and what time the draft report was received by the department and in what format that was received, in light of the comment in the email distributed to members that the electronic document is too large to be distributed by email. I wonder whether they received it in email or in a paper copy.
Thank you, Mr President. I'm slightly confused because there were written questions, so I'm now replying to written questions and expanding the original remit of this question. So I don't know if you want me to continue to expand, if you like, and take all of those written questions that were put to this court. But in essence, it was late October when officers had the report. I was briefed on it a week before the last Timwald.